No one had ever seen them standing in the same room. No words were actually exchanged directly. But every decision, every speech, every sleepless night was an invisible blow one threw at the other. The world in 1940 was witnessing not just a war of nation against nation, but the most dangerous duel of the modern age. Hitler versus Churchill. Two leaders from opposing worlds, and two obsessions that could not possibly coexist. Berlin, early 1939. In his study, which was crowded with a large map of Europe, Adolf Hitler stood hunched over, both hands resting on the table. His eyes were dark. His breath was shallow, like someone who was hearing whispers from the future. Europe, he muttered, will be on its knees. That ambition is not just a political ideal. It was a burning obsession, something he believed was a historical destiny that must be fulfilled. He saw himself as reshaping the world, something greater than a single person. Military reports fell on his desk. Austria falls. Sudetenland captured. Poland was the next target. He walked along the room, staring at the map like a painter staring at a blank canvas. But there was a tiny speck to the west, a stubborn little island full of ancient traditions that stood beyond the sea. United Kingdom. For months, Hitler considered it a minor obstacle, something that can be bluffed with diplomacy, threats, or air force. But in 1939, he began to sense something, a shadow that wouldn't go away. Not a soldier, not a ship, not a plane, but a human being. In London, a stocky man sat in the dim light. Winston Churchill, his cigar swaying gently, listened to reports of the German invasion of Poland. Behind his stern face, a storm was brewing. Churchill was not a perfect leader. He had failed, been ridiculed, and been expelled from government. But there was something within him that never wavered. The realization that the world only falls when good people stop resisting. When Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain finally succumbed to public pressure and resigned, Churchill was summoned to King George VI. "Will you lead this country?" the king asked. Churchill took a deep breath. He knew the answer wasn't simply accepting office. It was embracing the storm. "I am ready," he said quietly, his voice hoarse but determined. As he emerged from the palace that night, London was plunged into total darkness due to the blackout. But Churchill felt that it was precisely then that the fire of his determination burned brightest. Great wars don't start with bullets. Often, they start with words. And Hitler knew all too well the power of oratory. He had an uncanny ability to sway people. When he spoke, his voice rose and fell like waves, rippling through the emotions of his audience. He created a common enemy, promised glory, and a purer world. Meanwhile, thousands of miles to the west, Churchill turned on the BBC radio microphone. He knew his voice had to be the last wall holding back the collapse of his people's morale. "We will not surrender," he declared in a broadcast that would become legendary. "Even if this island is destroyed, we will continue to fight, on sea, in the air, and on land." His tone wasn't one of anger. It was one of rock-solid conviction, and millions listened, clutching their children as air raid sirens wailed. This was their first duel, a battle of voices, ideology versus resolve, shouting versus confidence. When Germany invaded France, the world seemed to split in two. Hitler watched the reports of victory after victory. The Blitzkrieg tank advance was so rapid that even the British generals were confused. France collapsed in just 6 weeks. Now Hitler stood before a monumental decision: conquer Britain or wait. He chose a massive air offensive, the Battle of Britain. Every day the British skies were filled with the roar of the Luftwaffe. Every night London was lit up by the fire of bombs falling like hell. In the basement of the Prime Minister's office, Churchill watched the information board recording the number of British planes down. The numbers were sickening. "If we fall," he told his advisors, "then the whole world plunges into a night with no end in sight. But it was in the midst of this destruction that something began to change. Hitler began shifting targets from air bases to civilian cities, a fatal mistake. The RAF, the British Air Force, had a chance to breathe. And here their duel intensified. Two leaders with two colliding worlds make decisions that will change the course of history. For Churchill, surrender was not an option. He could not allow Britain to follow in France's footsteps. In one of the most tense meetings, several ministers urged Britain to consider a negotiated peace. Hitler even sent vague diplomatic signals. Churchill rose from his chair, his face red with emotion. "We will not talk to that man," he shouted. "We will give Hitler nothing but unrelenting resistance." The room was silent, because everyone knew the decision meant one thing. Britain would stand alone. And every decision, from maintaining the fleet, to increasing fighter production, to establishing a spy network, was a direct blow to Hitler. Hitler felt it. He began to fidget, pacing around headquarters, occasionally throwing reports, cursing at his generals. Why hadn't that small island fallen yet? Why hadn't that one man ever broken? When Hitler shifted focus to the invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, Churchill saw something he had never seen before: the most fatal strategic mistake of the war. He stared at the vast map, the German red line creeping eastward, swallowing city after city. But Churchill knew history, and he knew one thing: Russia swallows all who come too close. It was at this point that their duel took a new turn. Churchill didn't just defend, he went on the offensive. He secured American support. He courted Roosevelt with subtle but deadly diplomacy. He used Hitler's every mistake to fuel his global strategy. Hitler, once the fastest runner in the war marathon, was now stumbling at his own pace. By 1944, World War II had become a war of attrition, claiming millions of lives. But one thing was clear: Churchill did not win because Britain was bigger, stronger, or richer. He won because he never gave up, even when the world begged him to. And Hitler lost not simply because he had more enemies. He lost because he believed the world could be forced to submit to one will: his. The two leaders never met face to face. Yet every city destroyed, every decision in the cabinet room, every strategy sketched on the map, everything revolved between them like two fighters pummeling each other without touching. Berlin, 1945. Hitler was now confined to an underground bunker, his world shrinking smaller every day. Meanwhile, Churchill stood on the balcony of the British Houses of Parliament, greeted by the roar of a victorious nation. The duel seemed over. Churchill had won. Hitler was gone. But history is rarely that simple. A few months after the victory, when Britain held elections, the people chose a new leader. Churchill, war hero, legendary orator, symbol of steadfastness, was defeated decisively. It was one of the greatest shocks in political history. And here comes the biggest twist. Churchill won the war, but lost the peace. Hitler, on the other hand, lost the war, but the shadow of his ideology continues to haunt the world to this day. Their duel ended, but its impact lives on, shaping the modern world, from the UN to NATO to the concepts of freedom and tyranny as we know them today. Ultimately, Hitler versus Churchill is more than just the story of two leaders. It's a story about how boundless ambition collided with unwavering courage, and how the decisions of two people forged a path that we, as humankind, still navigate today.